The Rebel Alliance was constantly on the back foot during the Galactic Civil War. The Empire had seemingly limitless amounts of troops ready to execute their enemies with extreme prejudice. But what would happen if the Rebellion had an army of their own? A clone army like the ones during the waning days of the Republic. Now, as we know, within years of Sidious's regime, he began phasing out the clones as he believed it was ineffective to have one army made up of a single man. For this reason, he shut down the cloning facilities on Kamino. As well as this, we know that Sidious controlled the banks by the end of the war. For this reason, we can assume that the outstanding debt the Republic had with the Kaminoans will have been wiped out by the Empire, as there was no independent banks to enforce it. So, you can imagine the Kaminoans will be incredibly angry. Their businesses have been shut down and their debt wiped. They've dropped from a position of power and prominence to subject to the Empire's tender mercy in very little time. Now, as we know, the Rebel Alliance was largely assembled by rogue senators. So for this theory, we're going to say the senators used their relations to negotiate terms with the Kaminoans. They will build an army in secret, and in exchange, when the Empire is reformed as the Republic, then the debt will be repaid and the Kaminoans will be allowed to conduct business as per usual, and we're going to say that this is somewhat of a success. Firstly, the chances of this conspiracy ever getting this far is unlikely. The Empire had spies everywhere, so realistically, the Empire would likely shut this down before it ever really started. But for the fun of the theory, we're going to say that the Kaminoan scientists go to the far outer reaches of the Outer Rim and create a secret cloning facility. Within several years, they have 1 million or so Jango Fett clones to a similar standard to those used in the Clone Wars. We'll also say the Rebellion finds a way to arm these clones, possibly by cutting deals with weapon manufacturers, or maybe salvaging old Clone Wars era tech. So we'll say that the rebels have these new clones ready for war, as well as the rebel fleet, which we'll say is the same size as it was by the Battle of Scarif. So what does the rebellion do? Well, in my opinion, their best move would be to raid the Empire. Outright combat would probably be futile, as the Empire will always have superior numbers and funding, if not the most elite troops, so it would be pretty futile to try to conquer the galaxy one system at a time. As well as that, an outright assault on the Imperial capital of Coruscant would also be foolish, as the Imperial fleet and planetary defences would make an attack unsuccessful. Instead, we're going to say that the Rebellion moves its massive army from world to world, system to system, with the set goal of destroying Imperial strongpoints, shipyards, factories, academies, prisons, research facilities, anything that the Empire needs to survive. Their army will be big enough to take these positions, and by the time Empire reinforcements arrive to deal with them, they would already have moved on to the next target. Essentially, the goal would be to destroy all Imperial infrastructure. Without this, how would they repair and refuel their ships? How would they train new troops and make new weapons? Essentially, by grinding the Imperial war machine to a halt makes it weak. Not only this, but the Rebellion's ranks would likely flood with like-minded people. After seeing the Empire can bleed, many who hate the Empire but were too afraid to stand against it would have the courage to fight. Now ultimately, this will go one of two ways. Either the Rebellion will succeed by destroying the symbols of Imperial might and showing the galaxy that the Imperials can be defeated, rallying more systems to their side. The Empire would be left defenseless, and the people would turn on Sidious. He would eventually be arrested, or more likely killed, and the Empire would be forced to retreat into the unknown regions, and the Republic would be reformed. However, this new Republic would likely be in economic crisis, as its very creation was based around outstanding debt to the cloning facilities, and they would have destroyed much of the galaxy's infrastructure to get to where they were. Or two, and again possibly more likely, the attacks are used by Sidious as an excuse to condemn the Rebellion. A series of repercussion attacks are carried out against those who had stood with the Rebellion, cleansing Kamino, likely massacring its inhabitants regardless of guilt, as well as purging any clones from their ranks just to be sure. Eventually, without allies, someone would sell the rebels out, and the Imperials would lure them and their colossal clone army into a trap where it would be picked apart by the Empire. The Rebellion is eventually defeated, and Sidious continues to rule, likely more popular than ever, as he would be the one who would yet again save the galaxy from a terrorist threat, how many believed he did in the Clone Wars. Ultimately, one thing is certain, the galaxy would suffer far more if the Rebellion did use a clone army, and the aftermath would be devastating. But what do you think would happen, and do you think that the Rebellion could win? Thanks for watching, I do hope you enjoyed. If so, please remember to like, sub and share, as it's really appreciated and helps the channel grow. Also, don't forget to follow me on Twitter @TheLawGuy for regular updates. Thanks for watching, I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.